right, we're gonna work it out right now.
Brothers and sisters, we're joined together today to believe in the power of metal. Metal Church.
Brothers and sisters, sing what Jesse has for thee. Your creativity, right there on your TV. Skills for you and me. Partake in the glory, Metal Jesse James Metal Church. Metal
I'm Jesse James. I'm a custom fabricator. Working with my hands is what I do best. I began building custom motorcycles in my mom's garage. Over the years, my bikes were in high demand, so I started West Coast Choppers, where the best bikes in the world are handmade. I wanted to do a show where you get to be a fly on the wall, and I get to share my skills and introduce you to some of the best fabricators around, the people I look up to. This isn't a TV studio, this is where I work every day. This is my metal church. In today's super high-tech world, there's still nothing like having something that's handmade. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to make a custom gas tank for a motorcycle, because the gas tank is what stands out the most on the bike. The tools you will need are sheet metal shears, a center punch, a shrinker, angle sander, power hammer. I've got many different kinds, but they all do the same thing, just at different speeds, and a good welder. So I've done a ton of tanks for a ton of bikes, and I'm kind of always been stuck on this kind of Frisco style tank, you know, something that's high mounted and it's, you know, small, just down to the bare minimum style gas tank. And there's several different ways we can go about this. We could use this tank and we could cut it all apart and cut the bottom out of it and make all new mounts and fix all the dents and change the cap and everything, but in reality it would probably be easier to start from scratch and make it the way we want it right from the get-go. So, you know, usually with sheet metal work, you separate your work into pieces. The work is usually pieced out where the most extreme radius is. So this curve here is where we have the most extreme radius. So what we should do is try to make some patterns off of this. What we just use is just regular tissue paper and some magnets. It's pretty simple. Now the tissue paper will almost do the same exact thing that metal will do. You know, it'll only lay it flat to a certain extent, and where the tissue paper wrinkles up or where it overlaps, that's exactly where the metal's going to need to be shrunken or stretched to fit. And we kind of manipulate it and get it to fold over. And that'll kind of tell us later on where the metal's gonna need some work done to it. So now we've got the top, it's laid on pretty flat. So what we need to do is kind of simulate where we would want to weld it or where we would want to cut the material, leaving probably an extra inch or so. The weld will probably end up being here, the middle. Let's make another mark on this pattern that before the radius starts, you know, before the metal starts to curve over on the edge of the tank. And that'll show us when we're shrinking it, how deep we need to go in with the dies. It'll kind of be our little guide. Always give yourself about an extra inch of material that you can trim off, because a good part of the metal will be distorted from the machines. Add an extra quarter inch into the width of your design. You'll need it later on. So that should be our pattern. This is just 18 gauge cold rolled steel, and steel's pretty forgiving because this is a pretty beat up piece that's had some English wheeling done on it. So now, I mean, the most important part is developing the pattern for your top. So now we know that this whole edge right here is going to be what needs to be shrunk, and this whole edge right here is what needs to remain relatively flat.
This prep may be boring, but it's important so you don't screw up later. We'll get into the cool stuff soon enough. Use magnets to hold your pattern in place. Then trace over the steel. I use the straight edge of the pattern lined up with the straight edge of the metal to save cutting time. For the inner radius, use a center punch to mark some sight lines off your pattern. Then cut.
So our pattern, so here's our flat spot on the center. So we're just gonna set a little guide to make sure we don't shrink any more than that actual distance. So
this mark is your guide, so don't go past it when you feed it into the machines. It keeps it balanced on both sides so it turns out symmetrical.
what needs to happen, this is our metal. So this edge needs to be pulled down because this is a shape that's bending two ways. It's curving around the radius and it's folding over. So we need to use some machines to shape that. So all we're worried about is from where the turn starts, which is right about here. So we'll take that over to the little petting gill.
Now that we've cut our top piece to size, the next step is to start forming the metal to shape.